Hey guys, Denver Riddle with you here. I'm a colorist and filmmaker, and I've been using DaVinci Resolve since version 8. Now, you might be wondering if DaVinci Resolve 16 is right for you, or if it will help you get the look of your films to stand out and look big budget. Well, I want to assure you, you can, and in this DaVinci Resolve tutorial, I'm going to reveal to you how to get started if you're just a beginner to Resolve and go from zero to hero in just minutes. I'm going to break down the complexity, and we're going to create this amazing look together, which you can download as a LUT or lookup table to apply to your own footage. Also, while YouTube is a fantastic resource for learning about so many different kinds of subjects, if you are looking for a step-by-step guide that takes you all the way through discovering the art of color grading and getting the big budget Hollywood film looks, I want to let you know about a free training workshop I'm going to be doing where I reveal my top color grading secrets. To attend, just click the link below in the description, and I hope to see you there. All right, let's do this thing. When you first start up Resolve 16, it will open to the project manager with a single blank untitled project. I've already added some projects, so mine will look a little bit different than yours. To get started, let's create a new project by double-clicking over the blank untitled project. And now we're in. Let's save this project, so go to File, Save Project, and choose a name for it. Now, DaVinci Resolve is divided into 7 pages following a left to right workflow where we import footage in the media page, assemble our edit in the cut page or the edit page, work on VFX and graphics in the fusion page, do our color grading on the color page, design and mix our audio in the Fairlight page, and finally export our project from the deliver page. It's just that simple. The media page is where we can preview clips by double-clicking on them and import them into the project by dragging them into the media pool. I'm just going to import a few clips, and once they're in the media pool, we can go to the cut page or the edit page. Now, you might be confused why there are 2 pages. Well, not to worry, both let you edit like you would in any other NLE, but the cut page is a streamlined version of the edit page for making fast, quick cuts in a fast-paced environment like news shows or delivering to the web. What's great is that you can begin your edit in the cut page to get your roughs and then move to the edit page to continue refining your edit. So let's begin our edit in the cut page. I'll create a new timeline by going to File, then New Timeline. We'll give it a name and then click Create. This will create a new timeline. Now let's double click on our first clip so it will show on our source monitor and select our in and out points using the shortcuts I and O on the keyboard. To bring our selection to the timeline, let's use the Insert tool with the keyboard shortcut F9. Now I'll select in and out points for the second clip and use the Append tool to add the clip to the end of the timeline after my first one. For that, you can just drag and drop it either after the first clip or use the keyboard shortcut Shift F12. But let's say you want to replace the first clip. To do that, we can use the Ripple over Right tool or use the keyboard shortcut Shift F10. I'll keep working until I have a rough cut, and then we can refine this with the trim tools. Again, I'm just going over the keyboard shortcuts just to show you that the cut page is designed for speed. Now to use the trim tools, we'll place the cursor at the very beginning or the very end of a clip and drag. This performs a ripple edit similar to Final Cut Pro X's magnetic timeline. Placing the cursor between the clips allows us to perform a roll edit, which moves the edit point while expanding and contracting the adjacent clips. Placing our cursor on the thumbnail portion of the video track and then dragging performs a slip edit, which leaves the clip where it's at in the timeline, but moves the in and out points of the source clip. So there's all kinds of cool ways that we can perform different edits. Now let's jump into the edit page. In this page, you can cut and trim your clips like in the cut page, but with more of a traditional NLE interface. If this is more familiar to you, then you can actually just skip the cut page altogether and go straight here to the edit page. The cut page, again, is just for working quickly. The edit page has a traditional layout where you can bring in clips from the media pool, source or preview monitor to set in and out points, the program or timeline monitor for playing back our edit, the timeline itself, the effects library to access transitions and filters, and the inspector panel so you can make changes to the scale, position, rotation of our clips, or for changing any of the properties for an effect or transition. Here we also have the same editorial tools like we have in the cut page for doing inserts, overwriting, trimming, and the blade or razor tool. But don't forget, these tools can also automatically be selected based on where you click on the clip in the timeline. So DaVinci Resolve 16 is really powerful. All right, once our edit is looking the way that we like, we are now ready to do the fun part, and that is color grading. Now, because this is a high-level overview and our emphasis is more on the color grading, which we teach, we'll just briefly touch on the Fusion page so you at least know that it is there and what it is used for. In the Fusion page, we have the Nodes section with an input and an output. The input is for our original image coming in, and the output is for our image going out. In between is where we do our VFX and compositing. So let's say, for instance, we want to add a blur effect over our talent's face. We'll go to the Effect library, choose Blur Effect, and this will be added to the node tree. We'll then go to the inspector and increase the blur value. But you'll see how this affects the entire image, so we'll need to add a mask. Going back to the Effects library, I'll choose Mask and Ellipse. A node representing the mask is added to the node tree as a property of the blur effect, and we can position and resize the mask on the viewer or use the options in the Inspector tab. We can also use a merge node to merge multiple effects over the same image, and this allows us to do tracking, 3D compositing, and all kinds of other things. Now, most people won't need to use the Fusion page, so you can just skip completely over it, but it is here for VFX artists and finishers when you need to work in a collaborative workflow. All right, let's go ahead and delete this blur effect, and let's jump to the color page. At the top in the color page, we have the viewer, the nodal tree where we keep track of our corrections. In the middle section, we have all the clips in the project represented as thumbnails. And the bottom section is where we have our color tools. Now, before we jump in and start grading this thing, let's discuss basic terminology for how we define color. The three basic terms that we use to define color are hue, saturation, and luma. Hue is the name we call colors. Saturation is the intensity or vividness of a hue, and luma is the brightness or shade of hue. It's also important to know how to read the video scopes, which can be super beneficial. We'll bring up the scopes by right-clicking on the viewer and selecting Show Scopes. The two scopes I always use are the waveform in color overlay mode and the vector scope with the flesh line turned on. The waveform lets us correct for exposure, and with the RGB mode selected and checking the colorize option, it allows us to correct for white balance issues when the color channels line up evenly. If I overlay an image on top of the waveform, you can see that the trace, the stuff you see here, actually corresponds with the image of the girl dancing. The vector scope corresponds directly with the color wheel, and I've overlaid it here for convenience. It shows what colors are in the image as well as their saturation. The further the trace extends from the center of the scope, the more saturated or vivid the colors are. Here's a simple but powerful workflow for color correction. We first correct the exposure or brightness of the image. Second, the white balance or color temperature if there are any issues. And lastly, the saturation by either increasing or reducing it. This will make more sense as we actually do it. I'll choose this clip as our hero shot. Let's first make a correction to the exposure of this image using the primary color wheels. The horizontal wheels adjust the exposure, and the pucks in the middle of the color wheels adjust the color. The lift mostly adjusts for the shadows or darkest parts of the image, the gain for the highlights or brightest parts of the image, and the gamma for the midtones or everything else in between. The fourth wheel is the offset control, which adjusts the entire image, and there are some instances where you'd want to use it. Now, looking at this, you can see that it's really flat. Now, this is a very common way to see it if you capture in a log or flat profile. So how we'll correct this shot is we'll adjust the shadows first with the lift control while watching the waveform. We want to bring the trace and the shadows down until the darkest parts of the image sit right above 0. Then we'll bring up the highlights so the brightest parts of the trace sit right about here near the top. Then I'll bring down the midtones by pulling down on the gamma slider. This gives us good contrast and exposure. This is the first step. Next, we'll fix the color temperature since our image is looking a bit cool. We can clearly see that the blue trace is dominating the middle of our waveform. Our goal here is to neutralize or white balance the whites, so the way to do that is to first find something in the image that should be white. In this case, we can use her white sneakers. Let me look for a frame with a clear view of the sneakers. Our goal is to get the color channels to align evenly, and when they do, the trace will turn white, indicating that we've achieved white balance. A quick and easy way to do this is with the white balance eyedropper found under the lift wheel. Now keep an eye over here on the trace as I click on the sneakers. And voila! A huge part of the trace corresponding to the gray background, shadows, and some highlights turns white. Now in case you're not happy with the result or if the whites look too sterile or clinical, we can manually adjust this using the temperature and tint sliders found under the number 2. In this case, I think we can warm up the image a little bit. Lastly, let's boost the color a little bit by increasing the saturation. Here's what the clip looks like before and after the correction. Doesn't that look awesome? If it does, go ahead and give this video a like. All right, now that our hero shot is color corrected, let's move on. On this next shot, we'll repeat the procedure, going for a nice balance of exposure with the lift, gamma, and gain controls. The color temperature in the shot also looks off, so we'll use again the white balance eyedropper, this time using the truck in the background. I'll then refine it a little manually. Lastly, we'll add some saturation. Moving to the third shot, we want to match it to the first shot for obvious reasons, since this is pretty much a wide version of the scene. To give us a good starting point, let's copy the correction from the first clip to this one. To do that, we'll go to the first shot, right-click on the viewer, and select Grab Still. What this does is it adds a still to the gallery, saving our correction so we can use it later on. Open up the gallery. Now coming back to this clip, we'll right-click on the still in the gallery and select Apply Grade. And bada bing, bada bang. That gives us a good starting point, but you'll see that we do have some matching issues. To help with matching, let me share with you my preferred method for doing this. We'll turn on the split screen view and change the drop-down to Selected Clips. If we now Command or Control click if you're on Windows, on shot 1, we can see the images side by side. We can also see them side by side in the waveform, which makes matching a breeze. To match the traces better, we'll bring the shadows, midtones, and highlights up with the offset control. There, that's a nice looking match. All right, in the interest of time, I've already gone ahead and performed color correction to these remaining clips. But in this last shot, you'll see that the yellow pole looks greenish compared to the ones on the other shots. To fix this, we'll need to do what's called a secondary or an isolated color correction on just the pole. Well, fortunately, we can easily do this in Resolve by creating a new node, and we'll use one of my favorite tools for doing secondaries, and that's with the hue versus hue curve, where we'll place 2 points on the color spectrum to isolate the yellow tones, then add a center point and drag up a little bit to lean those hues more towards red. Now if I disable and enable this node, you notice that this correction slightly affects the brick wall on the background, and we don't want that. So a cool ninja trick I want to show you is to further qualify or isolate our correction with a power window. Going to the Windows panel, we'll turn on the curve window and draw a shape mask around the pole. Then we'll add some softening or feathering to the edges so the window isn't so apparent. And voila! Our correction now only affects the pole. But now you'll see that when we play the clip back, the camera moves, making our power window move out of place. So we want to address that. Going to the tracker panel, we can easily and effortlessly track the shape by clicking on the Track Forward button. Isn't that awesome? This is one of the things that I absolutely love about DaVinci Resolve 16. Now we've completed our basic color correction for all 5 shots. But let's say, for whatever reason, our client decides that they don't like the yellow poles. Let's say that they want them to look pink or magenta. Well, the cool thing is we can fix it in post with the HSL qualifier tool. To do that, we'll add a new node, and then going to the qualifier panel, and with the eyedropper, we'll drag to the pole to isolate that color. To see what we've selected, we'll turn on the highlight feature, the magic wand you see here. To refine our key, we'll adjust the hue, luminance, and saturation selection. We'll then further clean up the key with the matte finesse tools. Okay, now let's turn the highlight feature off and drag the hue control to the right until the poles turn magenta. Haha, yes! Isn't that cool? Now keep in mind the yellow poles are on almost all of our shots, so we'll want to actually copy this correction to those other clips. But before we do that, let me show you something really cool. If we right-click on the node, we have an option to choose Save as Shared Node. You'll see it now gets labeled as Shared Node 1. Let's right-click and change the label of this to Pole. Now let's go ahead and copy this correction to the other clips. And now say I want to change the pole to, say, look green. Well, because we used a shared node in all the clips, I can simply right-click on the node, turn off the lock node option, make the change, and now you can see that the color of the pole is automatically updated in the other shots that are using this shared node. Pretty cool, right? Blackmagic Design has seriously thought of everything. Okay, now to the really fun and sexy part, and that's creating an awesome look for these clips. I'm going to show you a quick way to apply the same look on top of all these clips, and this will save you tons of time and ensure that you have a consistent look across the board. Okay, so to do that, we'll select all the clips in the timeline using the Shift key to select a row, then right-click and choose the option Add into New Group. We'll give it a name. In this case, we'll call it Orange Teal Look since that's the look we're going for. Then click OK. Then we'll change this drop-down from Clip to Group Post Clip. This part's really important. What this simply means is that when we now make a change, it's applied to all the clips in the group. You see, if I push an arbitrary color into one of the clips, you can see that they're all updated with the same change. All right, let me reset that, and now let's get to creating the look. The orange teal look is a really popular look because it uses principles of color contrast to make the skin tones advance or pop out from the background. And frankly, it just looks awesome, so you're going to love this method. In our first node, let's dial up the contrast for our look. To stay organized, we'll right-click on the node and choose Node Label. In this case, I'll just call this Contrast. For this part of the look, we'll use the custom curves, which allow us to make complex adjustments to the exposure or tonal range. Now, just a quick crash course on the way this works. The bottom point adjusts the shadows, the top point adjusts the highlights, and then we can make as many points as we want along the curve in between to fine-tune the contrast. In this case, we don't want to affect the highlights or the shadows too much, so we'll create contrast in between these areas known as the undertones and midtones. I'll make a point here in the midtones and drag it up. You can see this improves our exposure but makes the undertones look a little washed out. So let's add another point here and drag it down to adjust the density of the undertones. Yeah, that looks nice. Now we have much richer contrast. For color, let's add another node and name it Teal. Here we'll push teal color into the overall image with the offset control. This is where we'll start to see that color contrast. Next, we'll add a parallel node or a color adjustment at the same stage of the grade, and we'll bring out the skin tones. We'll just label this node Skin Tones. Now this is where we get them to pop. So going to the Hue vs. Sat curve and using the eyedropper tool, we'll click on the skin tones to auto set the range of points on the curve that isolates just the skin. Then we're going to drag up on the center point where we can increase the saturation in the skin tones, causing them to pop without affecting anything else. We'll then just refine the curve to make sure that all the warm colors that we find in the skin are saturated evenly. Lastly, because we push teal into the entire tonal range with the offset control, it's making our shadows also teal. So we'll want to clean them up so that we can have clean black shadows. To do that, I'm going to show you a really awesome trick. We'll add another node, call it Clean Shadows, and go to the Luma vs. Sat curve. Now the way this tool works is the shadows are to the left and the highlights are to the right. And then anywhere in between that we place points on the curve, we're able to affect the saturation for that part of the tonal range by either pulling up to increase the saturation or pulling down to decrease it. So in this case, a really cool way to selectively reduce the saturation in the shadows without affecting anything else is that we'll place a point here so that nothing above is affected in the mid-range like the skin tones, and then we'll drag the left point all the way down to reduce the saturation in just the shadows. And voila, our shadows are nice and clean. If I toggle this node off and then back on again, you can see the difference it made in pulling the till out of the shadows on the wall, her hair, and the trash can. Okay? So don't forget about that cool trick. As a final touch, I want to apply one of the free LUTs from Ascend that you can download when you sign up for the free online workshop. I want to show you how we can actually preview LUTs in real time in DaVinci with the LUT browser, and this is totally amazing that we can do this. At the top left of our screen, we'll find the LUT browser option. Let's go ahead and click on it. And now we have a list of all of our LUTs. Now, this is also the same as if you right-clicked on a node to view the LUTs, but the big difference here is that we have a visual preview of the LUTs before we actually apply them, and this makes finding the right LUT for your project so much easier. So I'll navigate to the Ascend LUTs, and hovering the cursor over the LUT thumbnails, you'll see real-time previews of each LUT in the viewer. We'll choose the 3-strip LUT by double-clicking on it. At first you'll see that it's too strong, but that's actually okay because we can dial it back to taste by going to the key panel and pull back on that look with the output gain control until we have a result that we're happy with. You can kind of think of this like reducing the opacity of a layer in Photoshop. All right, now let's play this thing back. What an amazing look. All right, to wrap this all up, I'll jump to the Fairlight page. Now, although we've placed a lot of emphasis on the color grading, which I believe is Resolve's greatest strength, I think it's worth pointing out that the Fairlight page gives us professional audio tools that you'd normally only find in high-end TV and film production tools. So it's truly remarkable that we've been given so much in DaVinci Resolve 16. But if you have simple audio needs like adjusting levels, etc., you can handle a lot of that all within the edit page. But if you know what you're doing and you need some high-end audio finishing or mastering, you can do that in the Fairlight page. So let's just explore it briefly. Here we have access to the media pool. We have the effects library, which will list any VST audio plugins that you have on your system. If you're an audio person, you'll understand this. The index section, which displays the track list and markers. We have the timeline itself and transport controls. A mixer, meters, metadata section, an inspector to see the characteristics of any audio clip, and pretty much anything else that you'd need to make a really sweet audio mix. In my particular case, I don't have any audio associated with these clips, so we can just jump to the Deliver page, but I just want you to see that this is all in here. Now, the Deliver page has 4 sections: the render settings, the viewer, the timeline, and the render queue, where we basically press go. For this project, we'll output for uploading to YouTube, so we can choose one of the convenient presets. We can change the output resolution to 1080p, specify location for exporting, and finally click Add to Render Queue. Then start render. It's as easy as that. Now, I know that I covered a lot of things here, but my purpose was to help you to get started with seeing a difference in your films today. If you're looking for more guided help in discovering the power of color grading, I want to invite you to our 1-hour color grading workshop where I reveal the top color grading secrets used in Hollywood and how best to do color grading in DaVinci Resolve 16. You'll find a link to register for the workshop in the description below. In the web class, I reveal how I went from being a wedding videographer down to 0 wedding bookings during the recession of 2008 to improving the look of my films and landing client work with some of the biggest brands like Facebook. I reveal the same techniques that have had the biggest impact on my career. So if you're serious and you want to be guided every step of the way, you don't want to miss it. I also want to point out that if you want to learn more about our Color Grading Academy, it's the only way that you can do that. People ask us if we do formal training. Well, this is your opportunity to discover that, and we'll have a special offer for it at the end of the presentation. So be sure to save your seat, click the subscribe button, and then the bell for more grading videos. I hope you enjoyed this beginner crash course as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. I look forward to seeing you at the training. Have a great day.